yeah, I don't know, I'm bad with introductions. Let's just start. Okay, so basically, this is a short video about micromechanics, unit mechanics, and stuff. To begin with, this is not really a micro thing, or not yet at least. It's just a knowledge thing. Okay, so basically, I will do it with Protoss units mostly, but it works for pretty much every, well, not every, but most of the air units in the game. Except for observers, as you can see here. So the thing with air units have an acceleration speed. That means if they stand still, they don't start at their maximum movement speed, and they need some time to accelerate, and then they will move at full speed, which means that having them stop moving will lose you movement speed, which can lead to some losses in games. For example, with your macro oracles and stuff. Here are a few examples. The carrier needs to accelerate. The prison doesn't really. The observer does a little bit, but not noticeably. Also, the observer is it's a stationary unit, right? Because you just siege it and then you pray that the Terran doesn't scan. Here, quick example with the Stalkers, because Stalker, just as all the ground units don't accelerate, they just start at their maximum movement speed, which is cool. The Void Ray is one very big example, as you can see. The Void Ray that just that started moving. So the back Void Ray here, this one, this Void Ray will start moving. So the acceleration point is here, where the Void Ray is. So it will be at max movement speed, like at around here, and then this Void Ray and this Void Ray will start at the same position, but this Void Ray is already moving. This is only there to show like that actually stopping the unit is making a difference, right? Because this Void Ray that was moving and the other one that was standing still, they will never be at the same position. The moving Void Ray will always be forward, considering they will endlessly moving forward. That is. Phoenixes too. Yeah, this is basically just all the units. Phoenixes are like that as well. So are Oracles and the Mothership. The Mothership is not too much or not too noticeably because it's rather slow anyways. The thing with the Mothership though, you can see it turns really weird. Yeah, you need to turn it like really sharp to move it in a straight line. Because you see, I move it over there. Oh, I move it over here, and the Mothership turns like this. Because the Mothership itself was like here, and the command I issued was above it. So it's not in the same line, which makes the Mothership turn weird. So if I want to the Mothership to turn cleanly, so not like this, but like this, I need to be on the same line, right? So if the Mothership is here and I issue the command over here, the Mothership will turn instantly and will not do this weird swing around, but only if I or if it's done correctly. I don't know if I showed it in this video, but it's not really too important. It is somewhat impactful in late game fights, because if you move your Mothership weird and then you lose it because of that, because it gets abducted or something, it's pretty bad. But as you can see, acceleration doesn't really matter with the Mothership. Yeah, onto some little micro tricks. this will basically show what each Protoss ability does. So you can dodge bullets or projectiles with blink, as you saw. The spine thingy was still in the air, and the attack didn't come through, but my attack damage came through with the stalkers. Because the spine took damage, my stalkers didn't. Point proven. Congratulations, me. Yeah. The next one is the Sentry. So with the Sentry, you can hallucinate stuff. Guardian Shield is not really interesting, it just gives armor, and the Force Field is self-explanatory. It can get broken by massive units, but other than that, it creates terrain. Interesting mechanic with the Sentry. It always creates, when it comes to ground units, it creates one hallucination per supply. So if you warp in, or if you hallucinate a zealot, which is 2 supply, you will warp in, or you will hallucinate 2 zealots, because that's a total of 4 supply. And the Archon itself is morphed through 2 Dark Templar or High Templar, which is 4 supply. And the Robo and Stargate units will always spawn as a single one, no matter the supply. So the interesting part about this, because usually you can't hallucinate observers, because it doesn't make sense, but you can hallucinate probes. And probes, because they cost 1 supply, you can hallucinate 4 at one time, which you might think, well, cool, but why would I do that? Here's a great example. As you can see, this is a Sentry, because it's Wardy observing. He didn't spot that, but basically he has a hallucination, or he made a hallucination, and here's 1 probe, here's 1 probe, and here are 2 probes, and those probes will search for proxies. This can be done in any matchup where you build a Sentry, which means like PvZ you don't do it, but because Zerg can't really proxy, it doesn't make any sense. And if you want to scout with hallucinated probes for proxy hatches, you might want to consider switching up your strategy. Versus Terran, it could be viable to some extent, but not really, because you need the scout in the main base, so you need a unit that can go across terrain. So a Phoenix or a Oracle, which is also fast. And in PvP, you usually want to, like, at around the time, like 4 minutes or something, you might want to look out for proxy Dark Shrine or for a proxy gate. And with these probes, you can, 1 probe can go this route, the other probe can go this route, the 3rd probe can go this route, and the 4th probe can go this route. And then you basically have the entire map scouted with 1 hallucination. That it's the most effective way to scout for proxy stuff in PvP. PvT not really used, and PvZ is quite useless, but it's a nice little trick that you might want to consider doing in your games, especially in PvP if you're not sure what's going on, or if you see that there's a pylon missing in the opponent's base. So the next trick is a I'm not really sure if I should call it a trick or not, but basically the next interaction, the unit interaction, is Adept with Adept. You can block an Adept shade with an Adept shade. So I don't need to put this Adept on hold position. I can just issue the command and then put the shade rally in between the pylons here, and the other shade will not be able to move through. This can be used in PvP, obviously, because it's rather rare that a player will build adepts through neural parasite and then decide to shade into your natural base. Doesn't really happen. But in PvP, it's somewhat impactful because you don't need to block with minerals. You can just have your own adept. You have to keep in mind, though, that once the shade ends, the shade itself can block a shade, but it cannot block the adept. So the adept can walk through. So you have to keep that in mind and play around that. Right. The observer doesn't really have any tricks. Neither does the DT. Next one will be Prism Interaction against all sorts of things, but in this case, I use the Viper and the Infestor as an example, because we already saw in the Stalker example that you can. Well, never mind. I did it again. I built spines. Okay. So basically, just with as with Blink, you can. Oh, I miss micro a little bit. You can dodge the shots. So I did damage on the spine crawler. My immortal is full HP. The spine crawler got damaged. So the interesting part is I can dodge abilities that are projectiles, and the unit that uses the ability loses its energy, but the ability doesn't go off. This works with Neural Parasite. This works with Snipe if you're like really, really, really good or really fast, but doesn't really matter because Terran rarely snipes. But yeah, the most important thing is it works against Neural Parasite and Abduct. So if you play like a Stalker Colossus comp and the Viper has Abduct, if you're really good with micro, it is still possible to win because you can lift up the Colossus that are being abducted, and then the energy, the Viper loses energy. It's not on 200, so it most of the time has one abduct only, which is a nice way to outplay the Viper player. It's not really consistent. Well, it is sort of consistent, but it's hard to do consistent because it's hard to see which Colossus is being abducted, and you can't lift a Colossus while it's being abducted. You have to do it while the abduct tongue thingy is still in the air and didn't connect with the unit. And the only like two things left. I'm pretty sure I missed a few, but these are the ones that that came to my mind. You can, or you can't cancel. You can't cancel the Nova. Once the Nova command is issued, the disruptor is immovable. You can cancel the Nova by or the disruptor itself can cancel the Nova. The disruptor can't move while the Nova is on the map in the game. But you can cancel the Nova by lifting the disruptor at any point, which will cause the Nova to not deal any damage and the disruptor to have a cooldown on the disruptor, on the Nova. So you can save the disruptor if you see, oh shit, my disruptor will die if I don't lift it, but then the Nova won't go off. Yeah, that's basically it. And the last thing is about Oracle Micro. This is more of a, it's not specifically Oracles, but it's all air units, because you want to have them constantly moving, like stutter stepping like this, because you can see the Orchids basically just flew through with full movement speed, like with a little bit of hiccups because I'm bad, but they basically deal a set amount of damage They fly through, bop, 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 and now they're at their destination. Like imagine this wasn't a pilot that I was attacking. That was like 3 probes, 3 drones that I killed, and 2 queens were shooting. And now I'm already out with the Oracle. On the other example, if I don't do that, and I just A move or shift click the Oracle will stop, and then once it's done killing the workers or killing whatever they wanted to kill, it will need to accelerate again, and then slowly it will go back on its original movement speed, but will like take extra 2 to 3 queen hits and spore hits or stalker hits or whatever is chasing the oracles, which is so optimal because you can avoid it by just